I want to welcome everybody here for our Earth Questions Herself. That's an interesting whole domain that we have been looking into, Joy. And I'm happy to have Dr. Joy Carver, who's president of Carver and Associates. I'll get the formal part out of the way first. Joy is a consultant to prominent corporations, business groups, states, and prominent politicians from time to time. But more than that, Joy and I have been hanging out with each other from time to time for a long time. And we've been to various parts of the globe, and it's just wonderful to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you always.
Yeah. So our webinar is based on kind of an unusual notion. I've leaned into it. I woke up one night and I said, Earth is on a vision quest, and she's questing herself. She's after something. She's evolving in some way. And we tend to think about Mother Earth in sort of a sacred divine way, and that's all true. But it's also true that Earth is doing something with herself and raising questions. And right now, the questions are the pandemic, the political upheaval, and by the time this airs, we'll know the result of the election.
Yes.
And then there's climate in transition. And actually, you're talking with us today, you're kind of at the confluence of a big storm that came through your city and our conversation. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm a container for people whose power has gone off. And my neighbor was picking up the twigs from the trees, and we're doing fine. You know, she's cleaning herself out. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what kind of winds did you get with this? Was Zeta, right?
I guess so. I live on the earth as I slept through the whole thing. People said, did you hear the winds? I went, no, I was just nesting, and I woke up and it was what it was.
Good. Well, it does really bring together this fourth question, and that is something we've been calling racial reckoning.
Yes.
And let's just begin by your telling us a few headlines about your own racial mixture and a few headlines about yourself.
Well, so I identify first as a human being, then as an American, then as a multiracial woman with ethnicities, white, English, Native American Cherokee, and African American from West Indies. So I love the mixture, and it took years to grow into the mixture because when I was younger, I was told if you have a drop of Black blood, you're Black. And then as I grew up and found out that my grandfather was a white man, and on my mother's side, and my grandmother on my father's side, turns out she was adopted because I wondered why she had green eyes. So and we called her me mom. My sister said that's a German name for grandmother. So just learning more about who you are and just understanding the differences has just been it's prepared me for the work that I'm doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm just honored to share my story and listen to others' stories.
Well, I'm really feel privileged for you to spend time with us, because I know that you have been much in demand during this time when we're all searching for finding a way to lean into and embrace this upheaval that's coming out of the loins, not only of Earth, but as a subdivision of Earth, culture.
Yes.
And so what has been your response, some headlines about your response to what's happening?
Well, one of the responses I want to say is that I've been listening to Eckhart Tolle for maybe 10 years. And one of the clips that he talks about that I share with people is resist nothing. So that's like the foundation for whatever's happening, like the storm or the political situation, is resist nothing, like lean into it, like you said, lean into it and be open for being transformed. So I've gotten, as you said, my business has always been leadership, team building, emotional intelligence. And all of a sudden, everyone's asking for diversity and inclusion classes. And I said, this isn't a time for classes. First of all, let me ascertain your psychological readiness to have a conversation, because people feel blamed and shamed and don't know what to do or what to say. And I often say, well, tell people I don't know what to say, and then say what you need to say. So like, just relax, just breathe, just be. You are perfect right where you are. And then let's have conversations. So I do have classes, but what I tell my let me call them not clients, but my friends, my fellow brothers and sisters, I conduct listening sessions. In business, they always want to say, well, what's your plan? What's your plan? I said, okay, here's my plan. And I tell them, let me have permission to go organic if it happens. Of course, it always happens. And I say to people, how do you identify? And they go, well, I'm a white man. Okay. And what else? And they just, particularly my white men, they say, I never thought of that. I don't know. And I said, it's okay if you don't know. We have a chance to explore. And I find that after the 1 hour on the phone, oh my goodness, people are just opening up this piece of themselves that I think has always been hidden or buried. I find such a great release in myself being with people. Even if it's Zoom, I can feel them and just support their stories by telling stories and breakdowns that I've had in the package that I've shown up with this time. So I'm just so honored. That's my word. Honored, honored, honored.
Yeah, this is a year of census. And so I went through that drill. Yeah. And you did too. So when you came to the part that indicates race, what did you do?
Oh, well, see, 10 years ago, I had practice. So my family's living with me. So imagine 7 of us in the household, and I'm filling it out for everyone. And first of all, I who are you? Joy. No last name. I only have one name. Well, legally, I'm just simply Joy. And so that was one thing. And then I said to each person in the family, so how do you identify? And I said, I'll start off Black, white, Native American. I said to my son, how do you identify? He said, put whatever you want. I said, well, so you're white, Black, and Mexican. Your father's part Mexican. And he married a Lebanese woman. So we put her down. Then they have 4 multiracial children. I got a call from the census and they said, wait, what? so I was already practiced. I said, yes, it's me. And here's the story. But I love the dialogue. And then this year, we did it again and it's acceptable. I mean, people, when you identify, a census, identify yourself. Here's how I identify. So fascinating.
Right. Well, I can't recall for sure, but I think there was an other. And,
there was an other before, yes.
Yes. So I wrote in mongrel.
Precious.
In fact, I find myself saying this is the era of the mongrel. That is, we're a confluence of bloodlines and history and culture and eco fields and hopefully, as you know, animals tend to do better if they're mongrels.
I'll bet.
If you go to adopt a cat, basically the ones that tend to be sturdy are those that have a lot of different features.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It's like when you think about religion, I think that those who fare, let me just be clear about this. People who can navigate in the world, for me, are those who can accept all the differences and see that they lead to the palm. And then they can navigate and understand more. You know, I identify as a Christian and had a Jewish grandfather and love being in Pakistan and dressing the way they do and getting closer to their belief system. That it's like a curiosity and a living in awe when we accept all the differences and all the dynamics and all the richness of all the being, like your trees, you know what I mean?
Right.
And your rivers.
Yes.
I will. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and I love the way you're phrasing this. It's clarifying for me, Joy, that basically we're speaking of identity. How do you? I like your phrase. How do you identify in many many ways? So I want to shift gears a little bit. You sent me a document from Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
And yes, yeah. And I believe that would be good for us to at least delve into a bit here because I've been meditating on it since you sent it to me. So to tell us, by the way, as we're talking, I will be sending this document to all of the participants. So they will have it, they'll have it in their hands as you and I talk about it.
I love it. I'm going to pull it up too, because I found it on Facebook and I thought I knew the author. And when I spoke to her, she said it wasn't her and she didn't know the author either because I wanted to give them attribution. But what was interesting about reading it, I read it to my clients. I say, can I read this to you? And then we can talk about it. And they say yes. And I say, when the tagline Black Lives Matter came out, it would have been my wish. It happened the way it happened. It would have been my wish that it came out with the context like what you're sending out to people. Let me find it. And that would have been great. And so it wasn't. So when I read it, I'll just remember when it talked about 400 years ago, and then when it talks about all the generations that white people have been able to grow and develop and get land and get jobs and the way that the person languaged it, you can really accept the fact. Now I know why the slogan, why Black Lives Matter. It doesn't mean that white lives don't matter. It just means let's look at why that's there in the bigger context. Because when people say to me, what do you think about it? I say, first of all lives matter. All sentient beings matter to me. And Black lives matter. And this is why it came about. And there's such, people are just feeling the ancestral shame of it. And at the end of the passage where it says, oh, I'm getting chills. Oh, let me just wait a minute. When it says, we're not saying you're wrong. We're saying our ancestors. And we're saying all lives matter now that you understand why we're saying Black Lives Matter at this time. So we can have a dialogue about where does it come from? I am first generation to be able to leave money to my grandchildren. And that's 400 years later. I'm able to do that. And I know that I'm one of a small group of people of color who are able to do that. So, and also to recognize, which is not in the script, is I know I'm privileged. Because I'm multiracial, I'm accepted in many circles. Now, I wasn't Black enough, for example, for some. I'm not white enough for others, but in the 70% of the 100%, the in-betweeners, I move in all of those worlds, in the business world, in my community, everywhere. So I wouldn't say blessing and a curse. I would say you can hold it as a burden or an opportunity. And for me, it's always been an opportunity. Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah. And we'll refer to this document as we go along. But as you were talking, I remember an experience you had growing up that touched me, and you probably know what I'm talking about.
Donna?
Is
it the Donna story? Donna's my love, the Donna story. Okay, so let me take you back to the beginning of college, like 17, 18, and I met this wonderful Italian woman, Donna. She was a year older. We looked like twins. In the summer, we both were tanned. We both had hair, blow dry the hair. We looked like twins. We went everywhere together, cruising in New Jersey, looking for boys, cute boys. You know, she would smoke and I'd make pretend for a minute, but never was my thing. But I mean, tight. When our birthdays came, which were 2 days apart, I mean, love my first friend in this way that I would get up at 6 in the morning, bake a cake, drive it to the white side of town, go to the beach and honor her birthday. Donna was a seamstress. She made us identical dresses, beautiful, like Hawaiian colors. We were just so tight. One day, maybe a year and a half later, she called me and she said, I want you to come to my house. I'm getting married. I went, oh my God, that is so amazing. So I hang up the phone, I get in the car, and I'm saying, oh, she's going to ask me to be her maid of honor. I am so excited. I can't wait. I get to her house. She meets me outside the front door. We're standing facing each other. The words I hear is, you can't come to the wedding because my fiance doesn't like Black people. And it was my first and only astral experience where I came out of myself, and this is my interpretation of what happened. And I watched the two of us tearing. In fact, I might just do it now. Whew, yes. And that's all I heard. And I don't know what words were said then. I got in my car and I was driving to another white community and I said, I hate white people. I hate white people. And I walked into my boyfriend's house and his white mother said to her white friends, and here's Joy. And I went, I can't hate all white people. And so that's been my life. When I want to be, part of me says, the hurt part says what it says, but it was like maybe half an hour later, I got shaken like, no, you don't. And then I went to the phone and called Donna and said, Donna, I wish you the best. I didn't think I said I understand. I just said, I wish you the best. And that was it. Go have a good life. Years later, we met up somehow, 7 years later. She said, the marriage didn't work. We got divorced. Well, of course, because I know you. And she said, I'm married to this wonderful guy. And we developed our relationship. And she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I said, I've been thinking about this. Let me say, this is Donna part 2. Donna, what kind of friend was I that I would say it's okay? Who does that? What kind of love did I have for you that I just let you off the hook like that? Why didn't I fight for our relationship? And she went, I never thought of that. I said, it took 2 of us. So please release yourself from the guilt and the shame. It was 2 of us. It was a partnership. And by the way, so that's like 17 and maybe 25. I'm 70. And Donna and I are in conversation. Although she lives in a different state. What's interesting is maybe 10 years ago, she called me and said, I'm having trouble with my husband. Could you coach us? I went, oh my, of course. Of course, it would be my pleasure. That's my Donna story. I love it. There's always more to the story. So remember, those listening, you are not your story.
The story is always unfolding. And in the middle of the story, you said something that really stands out to me. And that is, you said, I hate white people. And so much of our world, this has just been dawning on me in the last few days.
Okay.
So much of our world has hate and anger as a balled up core inside.
Yes.
And I've had myself, I've had anger and hate about various parts of my growing up days. But I felt like that I worked through that, and I have worked through a lot of it. But what hits me pretty hard is it's difficult to be in our current situation
Mm-hmm.
without ingesting hate and anger.
Well, that's one choice.
So,
That's a choice.
yes, it is a choice, but it comes in at forms of consciousness that register beyond our usual awareness. So, a part of what we're doing today is purifying any
Yes.
hate and anger that may have seeped in without our awareness.
Mhm.
I I I had a person say to me not long ago, "I hate you," and uh, it was interesting because that was just a voice.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't how the person relates to me. It was
Right.
a voice at the moment. And it
Right.
also, for once in my life, it didn't hurt me.
Yes.
Oh, what I see is in this whole racial thing, I probably have ingested in the shadowlands of my inner world
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of bigotry, biases, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So part of what we're doing in listening and dialoguing, you and I, is saying, let's purify ourselves.
Yes.
Let's
Yeah.
let go, and acknowledge when it comes up. I mean, even when you tell the story a moment ago and say, "I hate white people." Okay, you have that voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a voice you identify with,
Right.
but it's a voice,
It's a
and the
voice.
voice
And I'm
is
conscious
there.
about the voice. This story has been told many times.
Yeah,
So it happens and it comes and it's a small voice because I love white people. I love all people. And it's not the people, it's the behavior. If we can
yeah,
separate, I love Trump. Let that sink in.
uh-huh. Yeah,
His behaviors are not in concert with what I feel loving, nurturing, caring, supporting, serving people can aspire to be. So you can even see if you look at my nonverbal, I said it and I meant it. It's
hmm,
people's behaviors. And oftentimes I ascribe, this may not be for Trump, that many of us are innocent and ignorant. And the unconscious bias that we're not aware of. So it's like, how can I be accountable for what I'm not aware of? Well, the George Floyd incident shook us all up to our
hmm,
core, as if that was the first time that has happened. It's
hmm,
just because of technology that we see it. It happens. My sons were profiled because they drove our BMWs or Lexuses, and they want to know if they were on drugs or that was their life. A person of color
hmm,
living with that, living with the fear. I want my sons to live to be at least 25 from the birth, that pressure. And I have met it with understanding where someone is and let you say, lean into it. Let me understand why you've pulled my son over. So I can understand. And it gives them a chance to think, why did I? Now, some just do it, but many of them do it unconsciously.
hmm,
So, I'm looking to do work with police and hopefully with the sheriff that you've introduced me 2 years ago. Things are coming around to work with the policemen, to work in Black and poor communities, not just Black communities, other communities, where we can really understand what our worldviews are, because
hmm,
where they come from are hidden to us. We may have a person who's operating on a five phase continuum. It's called the Interdevelopmental Inventory that was used, an instrument was used for apartheid. If someone's operating at
hmm,
level 2, which is judgment and polarization, many of us, 75% of those taking it, operate under minimization. I have Black friends, I
hmm,
have Muslim friends, we're all good, the golden rule. But there's 2 other stages. One is acceptance. Accept the differences. Explore the differences in yourself, like the mongrels here. Understand the differences. don't prefer one over the other. And then there's adaptation, that we can seamlessly move in and out of other cultures and enjoy the richness and the differences and the different beliefs without judging them, so that we can create these communities with the human beings, animals, the plants, the rivers, and take care of each other. COVID is a blessing as well as ... To go back, go inside, go deep, come back out, transform to the person you really were meant to be. Make mistakes, apologize. Say you hate something. Oops, let me say, I just don't like the behavior you're exhibiting right now. We have all of those opportunities for reflection. And I understand we got several more years to be like this. So let's just dive right into this quarantine behavior and zoom it up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you bring something up, and going back to the document for a minute, as I read it, and as the people are reading it, there's white men built the country and created its laws, and then while 10 to 15 generations of white families got to grow and flourish and make choices that could make lives better. 150 years ago, white people, quote, freed Black people, but then angry white people created laws that made it impossible for them to vote and own land, so on. Yeah. So I want to take a moment, and we were together at Teotihuacan, and we had Juan Carlos Arian. I don't know if you know Juan Carlos, but his family traced their roots. He grew up in Mexico City, and they traced their roots back to Cortez. And so he grew up thinking that he was superior. And over the course of our time, he decided he wanted to apologize to the Mexica Aztec people. And this has been several years ago, before any of this apology began to take shape in North America. So we called the Mexica Aztec together in a ceremonial dance. And at the conclusion of the dance, they knew and set the dance up to embrace this apology. And so Juan Carlos then went through the apology to the Mexica Aztec. And by the way, they didn't say, "I forgive you."
What would they say?
They said, "We thought we would never hear these words."
Yeah.
We thought we would never hear these words. And Juan Carlos had knelt down, and they said, "Let us lift you up and let us all gather under the tree." But the forgiveness had to come within him.
Yes.
And with his relationship with the sacred. If he was counting on them to forgive him, then somehow it gets skewed in some way.
That's right. Right.
And they felt that. They felt, oh, this guy has done his work. So.
Well, you remind me of a trip I had an opportunity to go to Pakistan to teach leadership skills in an earthquake-torn area. And like my one of my ignorance things is don't read contracts, just go. I got back and I read it and it said danger pay. So that could have been a clue if I had read it ahead of time. But anyway.
Yeah.
I'm there and it feels dangerous. And every day for 30 days, the armed guards are driving me to the class. And in one of the really roads, schools were damaged. I was in this hotel where they had a kerosene lamp. I had to sleep in my winter clothes and boots. And they said, make sure you turn it off at 8 because you can burn down the hotel. So I guess with all that swirling around in me where I was and what was happening, I came to breakfast with Zulfikar, my Pakistani partner, and I just started crying. And this is unconscious. I didn't know why. And the message came to me, your life is no more important than the Pakistani's life. That's the message I got. So obviously, unconsciously, I had a message that I thought it was better. And that just opened wide open. And I went, wow, oh my goodness. And that's just been one of those profound stories where Zulfikar at some point took me to his home. He was the only one speaking English. We ate on the sheet on the floor. He introduced me to his 5-year-old and said, this is your American grandmother. Oh my goodness. And we're still in touch, 15, 20 years later. So it's the unconscious bias. And I would recommend everyone go online and take the Harvard IAT test to let it reveal for you what's unconscious. Again, the more we know about ourselves, then we can do our work, because it's about doing the work. And believe me, if you're alive, you got work to do. What a joy.
Yes. Okay, so send me a link to that IAT, and then I'll send it to all the people.
Definitely.
So I want to take a moment and very briefly just offer an apology with you as a witness, if you'd be willing.
Absolutely.
So I as I said, I identify as a mongrel. I have different kinds of blood, but I want to acknowledge first that I grew up with the benefit of being white.
Mm-hmm.
Every step of the way, I grew up at the benefit of being a white male.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to acknowledge that I got scholarships every step of the way based on that benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I got home loans based on that benefit. I got all kinds of promotions when I was in a system based on that. On the fact that I identified, didn't make any corrections about being white male. And I also want to say to all the women who are listening, you, others, that I acknowledge that I got benefits every step of the way, even going to a hospital. I had surgery last year. Every step of the way, I get benefits from being male and white. And I could go on and on. The list is long. But I just want, in this brief moment, at a feeling and energy level, to say that this has been a burden as well as a blessing. And my apology comes from my heart.
Thank you. So let's just breathe together. It came to me a couple of nights ago as I'm working to facilitate these loving listening sessions, to paint on my bedroom wall, breathe, believe, become.
Right. Yeah, I've been listening to a beautiful, I've been listening to a beautiful Hawaiian chant lately. And it is, we have our tribal words of puha, which means breath of spirit. And we have apu from the Andes,
Hmm.
And we have pneuma from our beautiful Greek friend. But I love aloha. Aloha is love, the coming of love.
Aloha.
And
Can I
it's
sing
all
something?
breath
Something
work.
came to me. Can I sing something?
Sure.
And I invite everyone who hears the video and listens. I teach it to my grandchildren, and now it's been years. I'm going to teach it to you guys. So I love myself so much that I can love you so much, that you can love you so much, and you can start loving me. Come on, Will. I love myself so much. Sing it. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, that you can love me so much, that you can start loving me.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. I love that, Joy. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Sing that through one more time for us.
Yes. I love use your hands to help you. I love myself so much that I can love you so much,
so much.
that you can love you so much.
So much.
See, and then when that happens, then you can start loving me. Yes.
Oh, wow. And then the last part is,
Donna Summer's time.
Oh, no, this has been a joy, just a joy to be with you, Joy.
And to be with you, Will. I want to add one more thing. I would like people to look up the pronouns.
Yeah.
Look up pronouns.
Okay.
And when you see emails when someone says Joy, then I could say I'd identify as she, her, hers, because that's a new way that people are identifying themselves. So much so that a gentleman gave me someone's name and say his name was Jim. And he said, I want you to send Jim an assessment. They need blah, blah, blah. And I was confused. Is this a single person or is this many people? So I did my search, and he wants to be, no, they want to be known as them, not he, his. It's amazing. It's another way of identifying and to make sure that we, in emails or speaking to them, he doesn't want to hear he wants to hear they.
They. Yeah.
What a
to be included. Yeah. This is a new world of community.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Will.
Community. Well, thank you, Joy. This is such a blessing to be with you and to talk through dialogue, talking through meaning. And now our webinar will shift gears to have people's responses to what you said. And I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan, give us any response.
Well, I love the energy of this gathering, and I really appreciated the shift in myself when, Joy, you talk about, like relaxing and not blaming myself, because on the other side of blame for me is cynicism. And so it's sort of the indicator for me that I'm blaming myself, and I'm kind of caught in that that circle. So this dialogue really freed me from that. So I think it will have similar benefit to other people. I hope so.
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful.